Okay, we should be going.
All right, we'll call the meeting to order. We'll start with our committee portion of the meeting and the curriculum and instruction spotlight. We'll start with the state report card.
Oh, sorry. It's been a day. Okay.
All right. So this year we're bringing forward to the board this state report cards. They were released to the public yesterday. The next one right there. As we look at this information tonight, a reminder, this is a small sliver of what we consider to be the full student. This is looking at, for some kids, 1 day's worth of demonstration of their academic knowledge. We also look at the student more holistically, and this doesn't necessarily represent what that full student is able or capable of doing. Again, I got to warn us, for several years now in a row, the state has kind of continued to throw some curveballs. This past year, they re-standardized or did a standard setting of their state report card, which means many of the numbers and or metrics that are utilized in the report card cannot be compared back to previous years. So it's kind of like looking at the report card as a new year, a new report card, not something that we can look back and say where were we, if we had a, we'll say where we were this year, well last year we were at this number, does that mean we were better? And we can't make those comparisons as a result of what was done over this past summer. With that said, let's take a look at our report card. Our overall rating is treating the district as if it was one large school. We, as you see there from the graphic, scored a 73.3 overall scores. And on the scale, it says we exceed expectations. The front page of the report card up to the right side there shows all the different metrics that we'll dive into here as we go into the next slides. First one of which is our demographics. A few things of note here. We've seen a large decline in students of economically disadvantaged. That means the students that are filing for free and reduced lunch, the percentage of students that have filed for free and reduced lunch has gone down dramatically. And when I mean dramatically, we're looking at 7 or 8% student decline. We were actually almost 40% last year. 32.2, that does impact different parts of this report card, but also the bigger picture. Some funding formulas are based upon our free and reduced lunch and the like. So it does, we do watch that metric. The other one is we'll see that we've dipped below 1,000 students in our district. That we're getting smaller, but the other metrics have pretty much stayed the same, whether it be our English language learners or students with disabilities. The percentages have been pretty stable over the last 5 years. So our overall score in context exceeds expectation. How did they come to that? It takes 4 different areas, and then based upon our economically disadvantaged percentage, the weighting shifts. So in this year, we went down with the number of students that were economically disadvantaged. So we saw that the percentage of our overall score that is attributed by achievement increased. So last year, we were actually a little more on the growth side of the pie. Now the achievement part of that pie has gotten a little bit larger. If we were at 35% free and reduced lunch, all 4 parts of the pie would be equal. So when we got above 35%, it was more growth heavy. When we got below 35%, it's now more achievement heavy. So what contributes to that overall score? The 4 areas are student achievement. That's kids grades 3 through 11's performance on standard tests, the Wisconsin Forward, the ACT, pre-ACT, and DLM. The second item is student growth. This looks at a value-added measure, meaning that it's comparing like students against like students, what they expect that student to grow, comparatively to what the student actually grows. So if we meet the expectation of growth, it's right in the middle. If we exceed it, we get bonus points. If we fail to reach that, we have a lower level of student growth. The third item is target group outcome. This is looking at our lowest kids, our bottom 25% of kids, as a separate subgroup and saying they're how did they perform on achievement and growth, and the on track to post-secondary readiness, that lowest percent of kids. Really focusing on, are we helping that group of kids grow? And then the last item that contributes to our report card is on track to graduation, post-secondary readiness, things like attendance and graduation rate. Additionally, a third grade ELA and eighth grade math contribute to that score component. So district summary, you can see each of the schools there. Elementary significantly exceeded expectations this year. Middle school and high school met expectations, and then, as I mentioned previously, the district exceeded expectations. The cut score for exceeding expectations is a change this year to a 72. We saw, what's hard is we can't compare it to last year, but we did see increases in these score ratings. But we can't say that's necessarily, we're told that we can't make comparisons. But at the same time, it's, something to note. We're going in the right direction is what we kind of are proceeding. Student achievement continues to be an area our district excels in. You can see from this graph, it shows that we're exceeding or the same or higher than 86.6% districts in the state when it comes to achievement. It's looking at, again, at the grades 3 through 11, student performance on those state assessments. When we look year over year, the left column in each area, ELA and math, is 23-24, and the right column is 24-25. This is something we can compare because it is the same metric. We see that we've stayed pretty much the same. Slight increase in ELA, slight decrease in math, but by and large, not a whole lot of variability, which is a good thing. In smaller sized districts, it's easier to have variability because you have less pool size of kids we're working with. So if you have a handful of kids, it can have a dramatic effect on what the overall score or ranking is. We've been kind of holding pretty stable, which is a good thing. Priority area 2, district growth. For a number of years talked about this as an area that, as a district, we continue to strive to improve, but struggle to figure out, what is driving that metric. One of the challenges is when you're a high achievement district, the ability to move those those high performing students even higher becomes sometimes a challenging bar to raise. Still, we say we want each kid to have the opportunity of 1 year's growth in 1 year's time, and some of our other metrics do demonstrate that. Whether it be STAR reading or STAR math, we've seen kids continue to show growth of 1 year's growth in 1 year's time. And this, for some reason, we haven't been able to crack the code of what it takes for us to make this metric move. One of the areas of positive to note in this area is the second year in a row we've seen students with disabilities continue to grow at a higher rate than they did the year prior. So, target group outcomes, looking at our bottom quartile of kids, our lowest 25%. 50% of the score driven from growth. So, growth is one of those areas we continue to work to improve upon. It impacts this score as well because half of this score is driven by that growth factor. Again, looking at kids' achievement, growth, and attendance, graduation rates helps define what this, are we moving those bottom 25% of kids and making gains for them. The last area that contributes to the overall score is on track to graduation. One of the areas that we've really targeted the last couple of years has been attendance, chronic absenteeism. We've done specific work as an administrative team to work to identify how we handle students that are chronically absent, making contacts with parents, working with special ed case managers, calling kids, calling parents, getting a hold, making sure that they are here. We're starting to see that evident in this, in these results here. This is back more towards indicative of what we saw in our report card pre-COVID. So, you know, it's definitely a point of celebration for us as we continue to move that absenteeism rate down. We continue to work to make sure kids are here, because I believe that's the best way for them to learn is being here. The next 3 slides are for informational purposes only. These are mandated by state statute to be included in the report card. This first one is new to us this year. It's as a result of Act 20. Act 20 said on the report card we need to identify the percent of 3rd grade students that are either meeting or advanced on the state assessment. You see here from the number provided, 75% of our, more than 75% of our students meet that standard in comparison to 50% of the students in the state. This is a very strong number and reflects well upon us, especially our elementary school in this case. The second is, we've seen for a couple of years, it shows us our AP participation or any dual enrollment courses that are provided by our district. The third item there, industry recognized credentials, is an area that we are seeing some staff changes in. We're working in those departments to reinvigorate and re-identify areas where we can give industry recognized credential opportunities for students. One of the ones that we've done in the past or recently has been our AP, what am I drawing a blank here? Our YA youth apprenticeship program typically falls into this metric. We didn't have any students last year that qualified under that. We're also, as we move forward, going to look to expand that beyond youth apprenticeship to include other options. I know CNA, medical terminology, you know, some of those programs that we've had in the past, you can reinvigorate and invest in some of that work here in the district.
Do some of those things you can do like online? Hard for CNA and some of that.
So some of it's students, we have students that have completed CNA programs, but it's not been through our school, so as a result, we're not able to identify that we provided that.
Most of this too comes from with collaboration with the local tech colleges. We have some pathways established for kids to get coursework while they're in high school towards an industry recognized credential, and that is driven at the program level. So when we have this staff transition, clearly that's not going to be something with the summer that you're going to look at implementing, but as we fill that position and move forward, identifying other mechanisms for students to have access to those things like, you know, some electrical courses and welding, and there's a ton of industry recognized credential opportunities that you can get. Most of that would be done in collaboration with the local tech school.
And this last one here, nope, take that back. This one we've shared previous years as well, shows us that we have about 172, actually we have 172 students in our high school that have participated in the arts. Next year's report card, we'll see theater will be a 0% because we're not offering that course this year. Some of these will fluctuate as a result of that. We don't offer any dance courses. But is a strong representation, I think, of the number of students that do participate in our district in the arts.
Now, when you say music, is that just taking choir and band, or is it an actual class that you have to take?
Choir and band being classes that are offered primarily in the high school. Other ones that, I think we have a smattering of kids that take music theory, or that's primarily the music genre. Art and design is, you know, myriad of different courses that Ms. Imhoff provides. Theater was our theater tech class that we provided last year.
But being in the school play doesn't count.
Correct. These are actually based on courses the students are completing. This is the second new piece of information that's provided in the report card. It looks at the number of incidents per 100 students that were reported to local law enforcement. I need to inform you that we need to be careful with this. This is a statute requirement. It provides no means of assessing whether a school is safe or more safe than another district. It is not intended to be a point of evaluation. It was just something that we were told we have to report, and we put the metric they put there.
And to clarify, this is what I lost my mind about, it was the further vilification of public school bill. That's really what this is about, if we're being honest. And at that time, Dawn asked the question, does this mean just students, or is this any? And it's any. So if we have a disorderly parent, for example, or a spectator that's had interaction with law enforcement on school property or during a school event, that's recorded. So it's not just student issues. Yeah, and when you know those pieces of details clearly in a place like St. Croix Falls, you're gonna have a small handful every year of probably disorderly conduct, you know, whether it be a student or a belligerent fan. And ironically, it might be a fan from a different community that's acting in a certain way in your school. But if you look at larger schools or urban areas, the idea that when you have an athletic event or a school event, when there's 2,000 kids in your high school, yeah, things are gonna happen. You know, when you're running a mini city, there's interactions with law enforcement based on behavior. And reporting that in some capacity so that quote unquote the public has access and can make informed decisions on what school they send their kids to is completely nonsense. Because schools are a reflection of their community, period. Schools don't create these circumstances. Anyway, I won't continue my tirade, but that's the point. And I did want to answer your question, Dawn, because at the time I wasn't 100% sure. And is any event?
Is it just during school events or during the school day? So if something, our facilities obviously used, or the grounds are used a lot by common folks walking through, biking through, if something happens outside of an event or the school day, is that something we have to report? Or
No. No, it's gotta be in a school-related circumstance.
And the other variability that comes into play is whether or not the county attorney decides to prosecute or continue on with anything that's brought forward. So that's the reason for the variability and meaninglessness of this data.
Yeah, because, and that was part of my tirade prior, we may not know. So like when something transpires and there's interaction with law enforcement, they don't necessarily report back to us, nor do they have any obligation to, and in some cases they can't with criminal proceedings involving juveniles. And we have to independently verify that, which is how the reporting can become a little wonky. So if there is an event at a school and it's not reported here, and that didn't necessarily happen here, but the point would be, if I can't independently verify that led to criminal charges, I can't report it because I don't know that. You know what I'm saying? So.
All right, in conclusion, where do we go from here? Each fall, our buildings and teachers develop goals for the year called SLO, Student Learner Outcomes, or School Learner Outcomes, that drive improvement in our district. We're continuing to work on identifying those strategies that help increase the student success. And lastly, as part of statute, our report cards have been posted on our website and will be included in our January newsletter. Any questions?
Yeah, I had one about the on track to graduation.
Sure.
Did they start tracking that in third grade?
So, on track to graduation, that quarter of the pie does include a third grade metric, students' ability to, performance in ELA is an early indicator of success.
Okay.
And then 8th grade math, and then again, attendance overall through all the grades, and graduation rates.
Yeah, and the categories on track and post-secondary readiness, so reading ability would be why that metrics included. Post-secondary readiness, primarily.
Another question I had was the data, like anonymous, like you can't look into it and see who's who?
We can, as a district, I can't provide that in the public setting.
And then do they compare that, can you go back and look like last year to this year?
On an individual student?
Yeah.
Yes. We watch and look at, predicted growth against expected growth. Different tools we utilize to kind of demonstrate that or look at that, to identify which are our bottom 25% of kids. We identify those kids and work to try to help move those kids in particular because of their weight factor, not only including the overall achievement score, but also in that subcategory score as well.
Any other questions? All right, thank you, Brian. Looking forward to the building goals. Next, we'll move on to curriculum and policy and discuss the Sunday practice site dates for the high school girls basketball and the boys. The girls is January 4th and 18th and February 15th, and the boys is December 28th and January 25th. This is something that we've allowed in the past if they have a Monday game, for example, or some other reason they can't get it in. There's rules by the WIA that say you can't practice 7 days a week, so we do have to abide by that, so we'll have a day off somewhere else to meet all that, so. Right?
That's correct.
And they usually choose afternoon, don't they, if it's on a Sunday? Is
Yes,
that right?
that was discussed
I
based
couldn't
on,
remember.
that, we had that conversation, and
Okay.
yes, that is the response, that we still
Okay.
accommodate other family obligations or church obligations.
Any other questions? All right, we'll move on to the WASB State Convention, January 21st through the 23rd.
So it's our call out to find out, we know Brent's going, and Lorraine and I are going, but is anybody else going, and then we need a delegate, and I'm assuming if that's Brent, if Brent's the only one going, he'll be the delegate. We technically also need an alternate, but, so, for twofold reasons, we have to identify a delegate for the delegate assembly, pardon me, for the WSB, and for planning for hotels and registrations and all that. And that's just around the corner, so.
I will not be attending. I will also not be attending.
I'm a maybe attending at this point. When is the final day I need to confirm?
December 15th,
December 15th.
but
The
I think
problem
I'm
is
gonna
that-
register you and then let me know before the 15th if you're not going to go, because then I can cancel you.
Yeah,
Sounds good.
and we'll get a hotel room and cancel that hotel room if you're not gonna go, because otherwise we'll be out of luck.
I'm gonna try to go.
Okay,
Where we staying in the,
Stay wherever there's room, right? That's how that works.
well, they
Right now-
changed it this year, didn't they? Where it's
Right
all-
now, we have 2 of 3 rooms booked. Everything is full, so I'm waiting for people to start canceling. It was a,
we have 2 rooms at the Hilton currently.
it was an interesting
We'll book 2 more.
process this year.
As soon as they opened registration and booking your hotel, there was a problem with the link to book hotels. By the time that was corrected and rectified, Lorraine went to book hotels full.
Of course.
Well, the link went down trying to register for the conference, because you had to register for the conference first.
Yeah, you had to register first before you could book a hotel. It was a little bit of a cluster.
Okay.
All right.
That will be going.
All right. Well, we'll move on to the 25-26 emergency drill reporting.
Yeah, as you recall from a few weeks ago, we had a principal update on the topic. Each one of them talked about the emergency drill day. Those are not publicly available, so those are uploaded here to the board doc agenda that are available to board members. Statutorily, the board has to review and approve those that are uploaded to the Office of School Safety along with other miscellaneous documentation with respect to crisis response and school safety that has to be done on or before January 1st on an annual basis. So these reports, along with other information, will be uploaded once approved.
All right, any questions? Can we ask questions?
Yeah,
Okay.
I just can't get into specifics publicly, you know.
All right, so if you can't answer this, don't answer it then. You know, kids go to the bathroom, whatever, how do we know that there's nobody left in the bathroom?
It's super interesting that you made that comment, Brett, because we had a scenario in which there was a student, for a high school student, listening to, had earphones or AirPods in or something like that. The announcement was made to do the drill, and that student didn't hear the announcement, no fault of their own, because they were in the media center of the library.
Yeah, doing the college class.
Yeah, so they were kind of independent at the time. And the building evacuated, and the student was eventually identified, and things were taken care of. But that caused them, because one of the focuses of these is to do the drill and then identify areas, we debrief and identify areas that we can rectify, or that we saw some issues with. And so this is a fairly simple solution. It's that each building or area is gonna identify a human being that's gonna be responsible to ensure that some of the perhaps unchecked areas or, because we already know staff check bathrooms and that kind of thing. And in this regard, what happened was, I'm sure every staff member that walked by there was like, well, there's probably somebody in there that's gonna, you know what I mean? It's a common area circumstance that wasn't addressed. So we've identified at the building levels who's going to kind of sweep those general or common areas and make sure that those are evacuated at the same time too.
I have a question also, if you can answer it. So there's classes that take place where students from like middle school go to high school, or I don't know if high school goes to middle school. How do those kids kind of know what the respective school plan is so that they're prepared if something were to happen while they're in the other school?
Essentially, in the evacuation drill, it's everybody's leaving the building. So it doesn't matter if a group of 7th graders are down in the high school wing with Miss Imhoff, she's taking that class and they're going. So it doesn't matter which kid is in what part of the building, whichever class they're in with that teacher, they're bringing that group out.
This is also an opportunity to review scenarios with kids. So, and we do that in other regards too. A lot of the time when we'll do a drill, there's not necessarily movement. It's a classroom discussion around, okay, if this were to happen, here's what we would do. And those are much less invasive, less anxiety causing, and frankly, that's what you need to do, is to simply describe what the process and the approach would be. And with something like a fire drill or an evacuation, you have scenarios in which kids could be anywhere. And so there's plans in place to find stragglers and to, you know, staff know, I keep them with me and I contact, you know, the building principal that's responsible for the kids. So there's information disseminated to staff, and the students have a general awareness that an adult's gonna grab them and bring them with them, and then we rectify it kind of from there.
And maybe to answer that a little further, once, if an evacuation happens, once we get to our reunification site, let's say there are high school kids that are with Mr. Larkham in his end of the building at the middle school, he would evacuate with them and bring them down, but once they get down to our evacuation site, those high school kids then will go to their high school advisory teacher to check in. So there's a handoff at that point with the cross-grade mix-up. If that helps further answer that.
I was also curious if, like, once an area is cleared, is there a way that, like, I mean, just kids being kids, somebody's like, oh no, I forgot my phone or something that I feel like I have to have in the room, so they're gonna go back in there?
No, that's all.
None of that's allowed.
No.
That door should be shut locked.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's get out time.
And all of those things are communicated too. We're not grabbing coats, we're not grabbing backpacks, you're going now. And having had to evacuate buildings in my prior experience, in an emergency capacity, staff members leave stuff behind and have a problem with it, students leave stuff behind and have a problem with it, parents have a problem with not being able to get to where their student is with law enforcement, and it becomes a scene. So that practice, those drills, that communication, and walking through that is super important. Still went smooth, but, and then you have to consider what happens what if it's the end of the school day? When can I go back and get the stuff? Well, if we're sweeping the building for a bomb, you're not getting back in there until they're done sweeping it. So it might not be till tomorrow, or 9 o'clock tonight, and that can be tough, but yeah, so stuff just sits and come back and get it at a time you can.
Very good. Any other questions? All right, we'll move on to policy 413, education of children and youth experiencing homelessness.
Yeah, so there's that and 413 rule, which is the next 2E item. So we'll take them back to back if that's okay. What it is policy that is, as the title indicates, what the district does in terms of kids that are homeless and in terms of their education when they're homeless. And it's about continuity of services. It's about the fact that in Wisconsin, if a student is considered homeless, they can be, it's rare, but they could be 100 miles from here, and we still have an obligation as the district, the resident district, to provide services and figure out how to get into school and not interrupt services. This is the McKinney-Vento definition of homeless, so this isn't living in a cardboard box under a bridge kind of homeless. It includes that, but it could also mean that you're doubled up with relatives. It could mean that you're couch surfing, staying at a friend's house, whatever the case may be. So any of those more broad definitions through McKinney-Vento incorporates homeless youth. So under statute, they're then afforded specific services. Policy 413 and having this policy in place as well as the rule is a requirement. And as I mentioned in the board update, we are undergoing a title evaluation and review this year, and as a result, the policy needs to be in place so that we can ensure our compliance with said review.
I've worked with homeless kids in the past, and there's always been a homeless liaison through the district. There have been kind of procedures in place. How is it, how did that run without policy? Or is it just that we knew that's what we had to do?
Correct. You have to identify and report to the state who your homeless liaison is, and you have to indicate compliance with McKinney-Vento. So we were engaged in all of these activities regardless of the policy. Upon review and communication with Brian, we identified that there wasn't a policy officially approved and in place. However, this existed out there in the former policy file, and so we pulled it out, polished it up, and are bringing it forward now. I don't know why that would be. I'm thinking it was an oversight, like we thought we might have it approved and it wasn't, but we couldn't find where it had been approved. And frankly, during the course of last year, it never came up, and I didn't even think about whether or not we had said policy approved. So here it is, and then it'll be in place and we'll move forward.
Don't you feel like we've approved?
I was just gonna say, this has come in front of us before at some point, and I think it was early on when I first joined this board, because I'm reading the language, and I'm like, this. So I don't know when we would have approved it, but it has been in front of us, I can guarantee that,
Okay.
at some point.
I always had some version of it.
Because I remember Mark bringing it, because I had recommended changing the titling to experiencing homelessness instead of homeless youth. There's some terminology thing.
Appreciate that intel. What we'll have to do is do a board agenda search, because based on the documentation of the shared file that we have, there was not, well, pardon me, it's not on board book, so it's not with our listing of policies, it doesn't appear there. And in the shared policy folder that I now have access to and have had access to since I started, it didn't, it's there, but it's not, it was never with an adopted date. So,
Maybe we just reviewed it and then it never came back.
I don't know.
Or
So what
just
we'll do
downloaded the-
is, upon approval of this policy and rule, this will usurp anything else that's already been out there, but for posterity's sake, we'll do a review of past agendas to see if we can't find it. To see, because then we can change this policy to say, adopted and provide the correct date, and then modify it on whatever date we approve this. Or did you look in board book, Brian?
I will look and verify whether or not we approved it as a board, but it was not listed in the policy listing.
Yeah.
And then the rule?
So the rule is simply the more, nuanced sort of steps that you're gonna take to ensure that a homeless child's education is not interrupted or impacted to the least amount possible.
Any other questions on that? Hearing none, we'll move on to the assigning the final 24-25 fund balance to Fund 46 discussion.
Yeah, so fairly simple, we've talked about it before, the district has an established Fund 46, which is a capital improvement fund. One of the benefits of transferring dollars to Fund 46 is that you, according to the state, it appears as though it's been spent rather than placed in your fund balance, which can have a negative impact on your equalized state aid. So when that's put into Fund 46, it's a capital improvement savings account, as it were, allows us the opportunity to draw from that for future building projects and renovations and things like that. So when I say building, I don't mean a new facility only, I mean, well, we're crack sealing we're gonna recommend crack sealing the pavement in various locations. You can use that for that. You can, fix HVAC, you can repair the roof. We have a couple of these items that could come from Fund 46 or could come from Fund 10. If districts, in my personal opinion, if districts have the capability of putting dollars aside into a capital improvement fund, when these things do arise, because they always do, you're not going to necessarily be caught with your pants down in terms of, we don't have the dollars to do this in Fund 10, and lo and behold, we have to do it. Like, you don't have a choice. So then you're not in this scenario, hopefully, where you're borrowing, for example, to repave a lot, or you're going negative or too deep into your fund balance to continue certain building projects and renovations. So it's a wise choice for many reasons. Currently, we just looked at what the balance in Fund 46 was, Lorraine. Do you recall? I don't either. It's slipping my mind. It's not like piles of cash. It's not like $500,000 or anything like that. I want to say 70 or 100, something like that.
100 sticks in my head.
Yeah. And the transfer of this in would be assistive in that regard. If you recall, this ties to the 10-year facility plan that we had approved last year. No, was it this year? This year. Sorry, seems like so long ago for some reason. Yeah, so and then any time we would spend out of that, there has to be a corollary to the 10-year facility plan that the board has already approved. And then I'll be done. When it comes for approval, we will make it abundantly clear whether we intend to pay for it on Fund 10 or Fund 46 if it's a facility project in the future.
Any other questions on that? All right, we'll move on to the 26 health insurance renewals.
So we got our insurance renewal, rate renewal, last week or the week before. We, if you recall, made a switch to Health Partners from Medica to avoid a pretty significant increase. We saw a 2.9% decrease with the switch to Health Partners, and implemented that new plan January of last year. We're on a January to December plan. And when the renewals came in, we got a 5% renewal with basically no modifications to the plan. And they're adding in Virtuel, which at no cost to, so effective in January, at no cost to employees, you can do a virtual visit. And that there's no deductible, there's no copay, there's no nothing. So you can avoid office visits by using that for lower level things. And I mean, if you've done that before, you realize that if you have something fairly significant, they make you come in anyway. But for run-of-the-mill allergy stuff, or head cold, or a variety of things, it's basically like the phone nurse, where you can communicate with the doctor, potentially even get a prescription if that's what's warranted, and those sorts of things. The 5% increase would be the lion's share, of course, based on the way that we pay for health insurance, would be a district expense, additional increase for the district, and then employees pay 5% more of their share as well. So it's not a 100% district cost, but since we pay 88% or 87.5, what number is it? 86%. That's the 5% is going to largely impact us. However, the average that school districts are seeing in terms of their health insurance renewals are high single digits to double digits, almost across the board. So this is a really, really good renewal. So the recommendation is we continue what we're doing and take the 5% increase and see what happens here in another 9 months or so.
You think that's because maybe our usage was not as high last year?
Yeah, we have a good loss ratio. So with the data that we have access to now, we're at like 82 or 83% loss ratio. And since we're on the tail end of the plan year, that's typically when you see an uptick in costs because people have met their deductibles, so then you see more, you know, healthcare engagement during that time, which costs more money. So I would anticipate that to tick up a little bit, and that, I'm guessing, is what they're anticipating as well, you know? And that's part of what the renewal offer is, but because we are at 82 or 83%, that's why you're seeing a 5% instead of 8, 9, 10, or something even more. Yeah.
Any other questions? All right, we'll move on to the elementary school roof repair.
So I'll give you a sticker shock, like I said in the board update. If you look at this bid from Lake Area Roofing and Construction, they do have a quote for replacing the roof on the elementary school, which I will tell you will have to be done in the relatively near future. I would say, in talking with Brian, 5 to 7 years. And that is $1.1 million as of today. And so having some money in a place like Fund 46 is a super wise choice. Otherwise, you're gonna end up either borrowing or going to a referendum to put roofs on buildings, and that's probably not something we wanna do. Nonetheless, we'll move past that because we're not talking about a replacement, but it's a good time to put a plug in so that you know what may or may not be going on. There are issues with the current ballasted membrane pulling away from certain areas on the roof that cause issues with potential leaks. They go in and fix them temporarily, and then it pulls away again. And so Brian reached out and got this quote to rectify that. And the quote is for $19,272. $19,272 to do those repairs. And of course, it's recommended that we do them because we're at a point where our piecemealing it to try to fix it isn't effective. So what they do is remove some of the rock ballast and actually cut the membrane out, reattach, and then put it, so it's in an area where it's like the flashing against where a structure comes up out of the roof. It's those areas that are pulling away. The ballast, or the membrane underneath, shrinks over time and starts to pull away, and corners in particular is where it pulls away from. So that would be fixed. The question that I had for Brian too was, does it make sense to spend 20 grand on this if we're gonna be replacing the roof in 5 to 7 years? And the response is yes, because we're dealing with leaks at the elementary constantly.
That's the way, that's what, it wasn't like somebody was up there walking around.
No.
So
This is just from having a roof this age, normal sun and snow and weather. Yep.
And what, so would we, this 19,000 from that 110 then?
Yeah, I would assume that we can, I don't think that we're in a circumstance where we would draw from Fund 46 at this stage. That would be closer to the end of the year. But yeah, it'd be a Fund 10 expenditure. Because what we can also do is if we find that we've spent to a degree in Fund 10, for example, facility-wise, that we might have some issues, we can flip some things to 46 that we might do later, with approval, of course, at that time. So yeah, it would be a regular Fund 10 expenditure.
Any other questions? All right, we'll move on to the driveways or the crack fill project.
Yeah, so those quotes also have multiple things that were bid, but we are specifically focused on the crack fill. Again, this comes from conversations with Brian Horner, Buildings and Grounds. And what you'll notice that's not present is the crack fill and the other information for the elementary school. The reason being is that that parking lot and turnaround and drive needs to be basically redone in the next couple of years. And that makes no sense to do crack fill for, you know, a few $1,000s and then tear up the asphalt and redo asphalt. So they will continue to limp it along and patch and do some repairs after the winter, just like they've done. But as another heads up, that lot and turnaround and whatnot at the elementary is gonna need to be redone soon, like within the next couple of years. And so we're putting plans in place to make that happen. What we have for crack fill is the dresser, which is the first attachment there. The cost for crack fill and dresser is $21.55. Going back to the second attachment, skipped. It's labeled high school, but it incorporates the middle school, high school, which is 2,900. It incorporates the in and out road, which is 9,250, and it incorporates the area by the bus garage, which is 2,275, for a total of all of those buildings that I just mentioned, minus the elementary, of 16,500. We would do this after winter time because of timing. It'd be great if we could have had it done, say, October. It didn't work out. So we'll let her go through one more winter. I would imagine this would escalate a bit because there'll be some additional cracks and whatnot that form over winter. But generally not crazy, so it won't double. It'll be, maybe 1,000 or so more. About 16,580 to do the crack fill after the snowstorm.
What's the 62,000?
62.
At the bottom of the second attachment.
Well, that's if you do all of these things. So that's seal coating, line striping, and so forth of all of these areas. And we're not moving on that at this time, just the crack seal.
Okay, so
So our motion will need to be clear about what we are and are not doing in relation to the.
Yeah, and it would be for crack sealing at Dresser, elementary, middle and high, bus garage, and drive is what we're talking about.
any other questions? Hearing none, do we need a break? All right, if not, we'll call this meeting to order. It's a regularly scheduled board meeting. Start with the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
Matt Bryce.
Here.
Christina Rager.
Here.
Don Milky.
Here.
Ronnie Schuler.
Here.
Brent McCurdy.
Here. Don, do you have the mission statement and the rules?
The mission statement of the School District of St. Clair Falls is to provide a supportive, student-centered learning environment that cultivates character, fosters academic excellence, and embraces diversity. Board meeting rules. Focus on the mission, vision statements of the district. Come prepared. Be respectful of others and open and accepting of ideas. Actively participate. Avoid side conversations, and remember that board meetings are open forum.
Thank you, Don. All right, we'll move on to the principal's comments. We'll start in the middle, with the middle school, Mr. Wyatt.
We've got a new staff member joining us, or well, has joined us here this past week and a half here, Mr. Nate White. And it's something you guys are going to be discussing here later in the meeting. He's jumped right in and has made good connections with students in our special ed department, and has rekindled some connections with staff as well. So it's been a nice transition here. And with the start of the second quarter, our elective classes have shifted, so kids are getting a chance to try out new things in the second quarter. So they're kind of settling into their new routines and new experiences. We finished up the first quarter with the champions of the fall, where we had a chance to celebrate all of the activities in the fall with an assembly at the end of the day and just a good little school spirit event there. And it was really well received by students and staff. And lastly, we're rolling with our winter sports, the first of our winter sports seasons now in the middle school with girls wrestling and boys basketball. Both have really good numbers and lots of engagement for both teams there. So excited to get the things rolling there in the winter.
All right, thank you. Mr. Wilson.
Yeah, echoing some of the same things that Mr. Wallace is talking about. First quarter is already done, which is hard to believe. Time is certainly flying once again. Fall sports finished, which is hard to believe. It seems like we were just standing in a football game and all of a sudden it's winter sports season. So girls basketball are in the gym after school tonight. Practices for winter sports starting this week and next. I'll jump over to a teaching position. We've got the technical education position, which is a shared middle and high school position, like 2/3 and 1/3. The position is closed, and we had 7 applicants, and we will be interviewing 5 5 of them, they're scheduled for December 4th. So, and then we've looked things over and are pretty confident, it's looking pretty promising to have a high-quality staff member added in to start second semester. So Mr. Sandell, which we've talked about already, is committed through the semester. So that's looking pretty promising. Last Wednesday, I pulled together a volunteer group of 6 teachers to look into literacy and reading at the high school level. I asked for teachers who had a passion in that area to put in some extra time to really see what we can do to do more, essentially, with reading at the high school level. The day and age that we live in now is short spurts of digital swipes and such, and it's, you know, it's not a St. Croix Falls issue, it's a global issue. But we started out with some great conversation from these staff members on why they want to be part of this and their passions and their focus. And our next meeting next week is going to be starting to dig into where we're sitting at the high school world as far as our reading scores and whatnot, and what we can do to just do more and do better at the high school level. So that'll be a long work in progress. I anticipate that being a 3-year conversation at a minimum. You know, it's not just a quick flash this first semester and see how it goes. This is going to be a long endeavor. It'll take some time, but well worth it. Then the last thing is we've got our high school play this week. So they put on their first little, I call it a practice today. Their first dry run with the 3rd and 4th graders. So the little ones were over here to watch them. Marsha Dressel has done a great job pulling the play together, talking with the kids afterwards. They've been very apprehensive as I've been checking in with kids in the last handful of weeks. You know, they're not sure if they're ready, not sure if they're ready. And 100% of the kids I talked to after the play today said, it went great, it was amazing. So, plays Friday night, Saturday night at 7, and matinee Sunday afternoon, so show up if you can.
Very good, thank you. Ms. Platt?
Well, I'll start with the sad news. We are saying goodbye to Allison Wynn, who has been our kindergarten aide for 7 years, and she's wonderful and amazing, but has to leave. She shared that she loved working for the district and wants to thank everybody for her time here. She's sorry to go, but she has to. Replacing her is Brandon Ducharme. I stole from Chris, and if it means anything, I feel really bad about it. But I did steal him, and so he'll be taking over at the kindergarten. Mrs. Klein and I have started a community ed club, the Creative Badger Writing Club, and we have 25 kids writing books with us after school on Monday, and I'm excited about publishing their books and writing AR tests from them and putting them in our library. Our family art night is on 11/20, and we're happy to have dinner with the families, and this is usually our biggest family night. We get 300 or more people every time we do a family art night. It's a madhouse. But we always come away with a community mural, so we have found another blank wall that we're gonna do a community mural on, and we are very excited. And our new student teacher, who is lucky enough to learn from the best art teacher in the world, Jen Clemens, Lauren Eddy, will be here just in time for that.
All right, very good, thank you all. Mr. Brown, superintendent's comments.
Well, I got a handful of things for you tonight, which I'm sure you're happy to hear. First off, we'll welcome Jacob Binversey. He's the alternate student board rep. However, we'll be fulfilling the rest of this year and all of next if things go as planned. And so we are appreciative of your involvement. We did talk about the fact that there will be a time where a student's viewpoint would be solicited, and anytime he has a comment he'd like to share, he's willing to do that. And I'll break it to him tonight, there will be a student update at some point in the future, but we're not gonna make you do it super quick, where you just talk about things.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for doing it. Thanks for doing it. And I also wanted to mention there was a Veterans Day program that was held on the 11th yesterday. Marley Hafes is instrumental in putting that together. Of course, there's a high amount of student involvement, band and choir, student council, Badger boys and girls. It was just awesome. And it was incredibly well attended. I don't know that there was an open seat we opened one side of the bleachers, and then there's several rows of chairs on the gym floor. And it was pretty much standing room only. It was crazy. But absolutely phenomenal program. The music, the speeches by the students, everything was just fantastic, so I wanted to mention that. I had put in my board update that I have developed a staff survey with the help of AI that would align with one of the goals of the strategic plan, which is to solicit feedback from staff around basically the employment circumstances. So think about it in terms of being a responsible and respectful employer, and asking questions in that regard, what we could do to make it your job, this a better place to work, and what are your attitudes and opinions of what it's like to work here, that kind of thing. And I did share that with you. I haven't sent it to staff, but I'm welcoming any feedback, which of course you're welcome to provide tonight, or if you just want to shoot me an email or a text. We talked about it at the admin team meeting today, and they teased me about it because they would all be able to be identified. And I said, well, as an administrator, if you can be identified and you're worried what your commentary is, I'm worried about you doing your job. So we did have that conversation. They were pretty much joking, but we wanted we want it to be anonymous, but you also want it anonymous so that people are free enough to provide, like legitimate feedback, and there clearly would be no repercussions for just standing in front of me or one of the principals and saying what your opinion is. But we don't want that to be a restraining factor. But we also want some ability to identify data, right? So if you just say, I'm a teacher, and there's all kinds of commentary out there, it's very hard as a leader, as an administrator, to go, oh, well, this is Mike's problem. This is, you see what I'm saying? And again, it's not about identifying problems, but it is about identifying what your building or your area has in terms of their thoughts and opinions. And some of them are specific about the principal or supervisor, and some of them are just global around what is it like to work here. So if you haven't done so, please review it. If you have any feedback, let me know. My timeline for sending that out to staff is I would frankly love to do it prior to Thanksgiving and allow, 4 weeks or 3 weeks of opportunity to respond, so that we have the responses back by sometime in early to mid-December-ish. And can, begin working through and utilizing that information. The cell phone legislation that we have talked about has now been signed into law by the governor. I still have not read the bill in its entirety, but based on information that I've been privy to, I am very confident that we are already compliant. As we've discussed, our elementary does not allow cell phones whatsoever. Our middle school only allows cell phones before or after school and during lunch. And our high school allows cell phones basically at lunchtime, passing time, before and after school. Our kids do not have access to cell phones during instructional time. There are a number of school districts in the state that are completely banning cell phones, so basically going the route of the elementary school, meaning it's in your locker or it's kept in a locked thing, like when you come into school. There's a variety of ways that schools accomplish this, but generally they are implementing no cell phone access during the school day whatsoever. I'm bringing that up because I do think this is a perfect opportunity for the board to consider potential modifications, if in fact the board sees fit to make modifications to our existing policy, knowing as it stands, because we are obligated to submit what we do in terms of policy to the state. I think in 26 is what I read is when that would have to transpire. So this is not a crisis. We don't have to, I wouldn't recommend changing things midstream, but wanted to start the conversation because there's also, a contingent of, there's people and parents that represent both sides of this argument, which is kids shouldn't have access to a cell phone until they're in college or 18 or 17. And then there's people who feel completely opposite, which is, I want to be able to get a hold of my kid when I want to be able to get a hold of him, and you can't tell me I can't. And everywhere in between. And to that end, I've worked in a number of different school districts. I've got eyes and I've watched what our kids are doing. I personally think that social media is poison. I don't think it's good for any human being. I'm not trying to be theatrical. It's nonsense. Do I use it? Yes, see what I'm saying? But when you're talking about like a middle school kid seeing like unachievable body images and, everything under the sun, it's not good. It's not, it doesn't do good things for you. There's good things out there, but you get a lot of the nonsense in addition. However, as a parent myself as well, there is also part of me that thinks about, look, this is how things are. I mean, that doesn't mean that you don't regulate and you just allow kids to do whatever they want, but there does have to be a time where we evaluate their relative ability to function as a human being, even with some distractions, or given a set of rules. And to that end, I've been, generally kind of watching, asked Mike and Chris in particular to talk with their staff members, and they can certainly share what the feedback was, and I would welcome that, of, hey, is this a problem? Because in my position, I'm not gonna be kept in the loop and a kid gets a cell phone taken away. Don't really wanna know that, and there's other things that I should be doing with my time. But I haven't perceived it personally as an issue here. Kids, when they're eating lunch, are there some on their phone? Yeah, but the majority are talking to their friends. After they're done with lunch, do they go to a spot and maybe play some Clash Royale or flip through Snapchat or whatever? Sure. But I personally don't perceive kids in our district being on their phone like you can see in some other places. And like you see some adults, to be honest with you. But I don't know that it's a problem or whether or not it's a problem in classes. I'm not a teacher and I don't get that kind of detail. So I would ask Chris and Mike to share what they've heard from staff members, just as food for thought to the board about whether or not we want to make any moves in that regard.
Yeah, I surveyed our staff informally via email of the 20, don't quote me on this, 26 teachers. I had one who felt strongly that they should not be seen during the day, not at lunch, not ever, just lock them up. I had 4 staff members that are good with the way we're at right now, but would support the idea of lockers all day long, and the rest were content with where we're at right now. So, do we have issues once in a while? Yes, once in a while, one here, one there, but it's not a common concern. And with 100% of staff on board with enforcing the policy that we have, it's working well.
Yeah, I'd echo that. I had a conversation with staff at one of our last staff meetings just about our cell phone policy, how they're feeling it's working. I just, off the top of my head, I can count on 2 hands the number of times there's been any kind of violation in the middle school in the first couple of months. I've had one kid who had a second violation, and mom said, you can keep that in the desk drawer for a week here. I'm not picking it up for a week. So the parents are really supportive of it. So it's not been a fight down in the middle school, and it's been pretty, kids have been pretty respectful of using it at appropriate times. So during lunch hour, before after school, hasn't been met with much resistance by the kids, and staff been on board with it too. So
Yeah, and I think I made it clear, and Jacob, if you are willing to share your attitudes and opinions of it, we're certainly welcome. We would be more than happy to hear that. But I'll just point out, I really don't have a dog in this fight. It doesn't really matter personally to me whether the phone policy is not at all, or what we've got, or something even less restrictive. What matters to me is that kids are coming here, they're respectful, they do what we ask them to do, and they're here to be, learning and in class. And so I just want to be abundantly clear that I don't really perceive myself as having a dog in this fight whatsoever. And so I think we as a community, as a board, make some decisions about what we want to see and implement policy changes, because as I said, I do have a nuanced view. Some of this stuff is nonsense, and I wish no one ever saw it. But on the same hand, it is kind of a fixture of society, and responsible use is something. Are you willing to share, Jacob, what your opinion is?
Yeah, I'd say like during class and stuff, I haven't ever really seen much problems with kids with their phone. I mean, once in a while there'll be like a kid that I'll just bring it out and I'll get it taken away. And yeah, lunch and stuff, we're usually talking to each other, nobody's on our phones, at least where I'm sitting. And yeah, after lunch we'll play Clash Royale or Snapchat and stuff, but like some of those things we're doing together, like we'll play Clash Royale and stuff. So
Yeah, you gotta do a friendly battle every once in a while.
yeah.
Yep.
Thank you.
All right.
Well, so as far as the policy, I mean, do you guys want to just bring it back to review it, just to get it on the agenda? See if we get any feedback, or?
Yeah, I figured start the conversation, and that wouldn't hurt. And like I said, this is not a crisis. I wouldn't recommend making a change and implementing it midstream, but we can bring it back in January, February, it really doesn't matter. And just as, because I would hope that the people are gonna know sooner than later that the bill's been signed. People are gonna know, they already know what's going on here in school. But there's been some communication from a couple of parents with respect to further restricting cell phone use. There is research out there about the harm that social media and cell phones can cause. But I also would say that it's not just a school issue. And a school trying to rectify a societal issue is how we've gone wrong in this country many times, in my opinion, in saying this is how we're gonna solve this big problem by making schools teach kids not to do this, when they're much broader issues than what schools have the capability to teach. And I'll get off my pedestal about that. But yeah, I do think it makes sense. I can have it on a future agenda, and we can see what kind of feedback we get, if any, and then if it's like, nope, we've reviewed it, it looks good, and we don't do anything with it, that's just fine. If we wanna see some modifications, that's just fine too. Sound fair enough? Great. Then lastly, I just wanted to draw your attention to the fact that there is no less than 6 bills currently circulating in the Capitol, bills, not law. Whether or not they're signed by the governor or get out of committee remains to be seen, but there's 6 bills that deal with school consolidation and or whole grade sharing. So there is a renewed push, and I printed out a copy here because I wasn't going to, if you want to know more about any of the bills, you can either take the copy or you chit chat after the meeting, whatever the case may be. But that is incentives in terms of aid to school districts to determine whether or not to do planning and preliminary studies on potential consolidation. There's aid recommendations for aid adjustments for school districts that do consolidate. And again, I'm not advocating for it, I'm talking about bills that are circulating. There is one that's quite interesting that is required. Assembly Bill 646 requiring a school district consolidation study. So that would, if enacted, that would require the statewide a consolidation study to be done of existing schools, facilities, staffing levels, salary scales, population of school-age children in each school district, revenue limits, and current overall spending. That would be wild. And they would have to provide recommendations for changes to school district boundaries, conditions of existing school district facilities in each school district in the state, current population of school-age children in each school district, and a 10-year projection of the same, and recommendations for school district consolidations that promote efficiency and are geographically feasible and economically viable. So that would be like, and you wouldn't have a choice of whether or not you participated in that consolidation study. Anyway, it's an interesting topic. Particularly in Wisconsin, there's 421 school districts. The average size school district in the state of Wisconsin is 1,200 students. I just want you to tell us, that's, when you talk about that statistic, that's shocking to people.
Yes, it
The
is.
average size is 1,200, or maybe that's the mean. No, I think it's the average. And that incorporates Milwaukee, which has 30,000 or 35,000 students, all the way to, I don't know, a district that has like 200, right? So, if 1,200 is about where everybody's at, you can see why these talks about school consolidation can raise some hackles, because most people have an intense love for their school and their community and their mascot and their sports teams, and an intense, I wouldn't say hate, but a good amount of, healthy disrespect for the school district down the street that we beat every year in whatever sport. You see what I'm saying? So it's an interesting topic that I just wanted to bring your attention to. There are bills circulating again, not necessarily signed into law, whether or not the governor signs it or the Senate jumps on, or if they move out of committee, God only knows. But it's a hot and heavy topic again in the Capitol, so it's worth paying attention to. And I am done.
Are you sure?
Yes.
You're not, because you went with me to training. We went,
Oh,
Craig and
that's
I
right.
went to the,
You can talk about it though.
we went to the Regional 1 WASB fall training. That was a couple weeks ago, I think. Went over to Rice Lake for that one. It's just kind of a similar thing that they do every year, just go over, you know, legislative updates, you know, talk about, you know, what's going on at the state, what WASB does. You know, it's good to go hear some of that kind of stuff, and, you know, get to interact with some of your colleagues, even though they might be one of those schools that we beat all the time.
Might have been at their table.
But yeah, so, again, we get to meet the WSB leaders, our, so what's Linda, she's our, she's our
Yeah, she's the Region 5 rep
Region 5.
to the WASB board.
Yeah. So, it was good, it's always good food when you go to Rice Lake, and to know that too. Anybody else? All right, no public comments, no presentations or awards. We'll move on.
Oh, there isn't, sorry.
All right, we'll move on to the consent
It'll
agenda.
have to be December. God darn it.
What happened?
It'll become clear. Yes, and my intentions were for tonight, I'm so sorry. It's sitting on my desk. My apologies. We'll do it next month, it'll be fun.
All right, I'll move on to the consent agenda. I'll take a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
We have a motion by Ronnie,
Second.
second by Matt. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We'll go on to curriculum and policy and vote on the 25-26 emergency drill reports. Take a motion to approve those.
I'll make a motion to approve the emergency drill reports provided.
A motion by Don,
Second.
and a second by Tashina. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Next is the vote and discuss and vote on the hiring of the candidate for the middle school special ed teacher position. We already know the name, right?
Yeah, Nate White, we had, for context too, and just so that it's not confusing for anybody that might watch the video now or later. We had significant influx of special education students, particularly at the middle school level. And know full well that we're hedging our bets to recognize that number of kids is likely going to stick around for some time and travel through the middle school at least. Plus, we have the need from existing caseloads in the middle school anyway. So that was further exacerbated by, I think it was 8 students, Chris, with IEPs?
Well, maybe more than that.
13.
Yeah. It was
13 rings a bell.
Yep, it was eight just in one grade, but yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so yeah.
Anyway, so based on that, I did individual phone calls to board members so that we weren't in a position in which we're still, holding in a holding pattern. Doing a long-term sub for a special ed job is not gonna work. You're not gonna get any applicants. And as a result, we got the preliminary individual nod when I talked to each one of you to proceed with finding a candidate, and that individual was Nate White, who did work here previously, had left to pursue administration, and then through other circumstances ended up back in teaching special ed in Amory. And we would love for him to officially join the team at the middle school. What we'll do is he will transition with those kids. It's not grade level wise at the middle school. You have a mix of grade levels on your caseload. He'll transition or keep with that bubbles. The caseloads will remain similar throughout the 4 years these kids are in middle school-ish. And then potentially as numbers change and progress, there may be a time in the future where he is middle, half high. There may be a time in the future where he's full high. And then we would move him around where, the spot where the need would be over time. So I don't see that this is gonna be a thing where we're like, oh, we don't need this extra special ed teacher for the foreseeable future, so.
Very good. Any other questions? Hearing none, I'll take a motion to approve the hiring of Nate White as the 2020, or middle school special education teacher.
I'll make that motion.
We have a motion by Matt,
I'll second it.
second by Tashina. Any further discussion? We do a voice vote on that, Lori?
Usually on hirings, we do roll call.
Roll call vote?
Matt Bryce,
Yes.
Tashina Rager,
Yes.
Don Milky,
Yes.
Ronnie Schuler,
Yes.
Brent McCurdy.
Yes. Motion carries. We'll move on to financial and review and vote on the 2026 health insurance renewal. So that is what was presented, a
Yep.
5% increase.
You got it.
I'll make a motion to accept the 2026 health insurance renewal as presented.
We have a motion by Ronnie,
Second.
second by Matt. Any further discussion? We have to roll call that too.
Matt Bryce,
Yes.
Tashina Rager,
Yes.
Don Milky,
Yes.
Ronnie Schuler,
Yes.
Brent McCurdy.
Yes. All right, that is approved. We'll move on. No, we do have an
We
announcement.
have an announcement. We have a thank you card from the Star Education Foundation of St. Croix Falls. It says, "St. Croix Falls School Board, thank you for your donation to our Taco Bingo event. We appreciate all you do for our school and students," and it's signed the Star Committee.
All right, very good. Thank you. Upcoming events. Not looking like we'll have a board meeting.
Plan is to not have the November 26th meeting.
Is that Wednesday? If we do need to have one, could we do it Tuesday?
We'll have to argue about that
What
when it
we'll
comes
do
up.
is, yeah, so I think the plan should be that we don't have a second meeting in November. If there's a reason that we need to, I will do like an individual poll, we'll figure it out then, and then, so it may not, it won't be the 26th anyway, you know what I'm saying? It may not be. So let's do that. If you're comfortable with that, I don't think that it's gonna happen. I've been pushing stuff to the 12th, and we're planning for one in December as well. So hopefully we can make that work there too.
All right, then the next meeting in December would be December 10th.
Correct.
Then potentially again the 23rd, it's a Tuesday. And then, of course, the deadline for incumbents to file a notice of non-candidacy for spring school board elections. And then January 6th would be the deadline for filing a declaration of candidacy and nomination paperwork for spring school board elections. January would be a regular scheduled meeting, the second Wednesday of the month, and then the school board convention, and then if needed, on the 28th, we would have that approved. All right, Don, you want to discuss the rules of the meeting?
We focused on the mission and vision statements of the district. We were prepared. We were respectful of others and open to their ideas. Everyone actively participated. We avoided side conversations, and we had an open forum.
All right, thank you, Don. I'll take a motion to adjourn to executive closed session.
I'll make that motion to adjourn the executive closed session pursuant to section 19.851CF of Wisconsin statutes.
All right, we have a motion by Tashina,
I'll second.
second by Don. Any, roll call vote?
Matt Bryce,
Yes.
Tashina Rager,
Yes.
Don Milky,
Yes.
Ronnie Schuler,
Yes.
Brent McCurdy.
Yes. We are in closed session. Thanks to all of you.